In any given national election, do you know how many non-citizens actually try to vote or get away with voting? A handful, and they almost always get caught. There have been studies done on this. Yet Republicans continue to push this myth that there are millions of illegal immigrants in this country who are registering to vote and voting, and they're swaying elections in favor of Democrats. It's a lie, and it's a lie they keep pushing because what they really want is to make it harder for everybody to vote, because that's how they're going to try and stay in power. Hello, my name is Brian Kennedy. I'm the mayor of Glendale, Wisconsin, president of Democratic Municipal Officials, and a member of the DNC. Follow me for local government and Democratic Party content. In a study released just last month, the state of Utah reviewed 2.1 million voter registrations in the state, and they found exactly one non-citizen on their rolls, and that person didn't even show up to vote. This is an incredibly red state, right? So if there's going to be a place where Republicans are going to be looking really hard to find all the illegal people that shouldn't be on the voter rolls, it's going to be a state like Utah. And what did they find? They actually found evidence to support why we don't need the kind of legislation they're pushing. We found that the system already works. One non-citizen was on a voter roll of 2.1 million people, and that person didn't even show up to vote. It's ridiculous. And I'm sick of these lies that get told by Republicans over and over and over again so they can pass egregious legislation like this new Save America Act they have in Congress, an act that's going to make it incredibly difficult for many Americans to be able to register to vote or to be able to vote. I'll give the Republicans credit. They're really good at PR and really good at coming up with catchy names and slogans. For example, the bill I'm talking about in this video is called the Save America Act. Sounds patriotic, doesn't it? SAVE is an acronym that stands for Safeguarding American Voter Eligibility. And wouldn't we all want to make sure that we're safeguarding voting, right? We only want to make sure that American citizens are voting. The problem is the restrictions that are going to be put on people in this bill are going to make it far more difficult for people to actually be able to register to vote and vote. I'll give you an example. I didn't have a copy of my birth certificate until I was in my late 20s. And the only reason I needed a copy of my birth certificate was, even though I already had a passport, I was applying for a visa to another country where I had to have a copy of my birth certificate. So I had my mom dig it up. She had it in her keepsakes, and she sent it to me. Right? I'd already been living on my own for over a decade and didn't have that information. My parents did. And there are millions of Americans that are in similar situations. Many people, they can't even find a copy of their birth certificate. They're going to have to go to their state and petition their state to be able to give them a copy of a birth certificate that's on file somewhere. 52% of Americans don't have a passport because they've never traveled outside the country. They've never needed one. Passport would be a proof of American citizenship. What about people who change their names? You know, primarily this is women, but I do know a number of men who also changed their name when they got married. You know, they hyphenated their names with their spouse. Or I actually know of a handful of couples where they decided to create their own name as a hybrid of their previous names instead of hyphenating. Those names are not on their birth certificate, which means that they're going to have to create a mountain of paperwork, a birth certificate, a marriage certificate, a legal name change, and their current ID to show how you go from step to step to step to why their ID doesn't match what's on their birth certificate. And that's what Republicans are trying to do with the Save America Act. It has nothing to do with trying to keep non-citizens from voting, because as I've said a number of times, it's bullshit. They're not voting. And when the handful of people do, they get caught. What Republicans are trying to do is to make it more difficult for people to vote. So imagine that you get married and you move from your parents' house to the next neighborhood over with your spouse. And now you have to re-register to vote, but you've changed your name. All of a sudden, you already registered to vote before in the same municipality. But all you've done is get married and move a neighborhood away, and re-registering to vote now requires a mountain of paperwork that it didn't require the last time you registered to vote. That is why we need to be contacting our members of Congress and our U.S. senators, especially if they are Republicans, and telling them that you don't want them limiting your ability to vote. You don't want them making it more difficult for you as an American citizen to be able to register to vote and cast your ballot. And most importantly, we're coming up on the November midterms. If your member of Congress voted for this bill, vote their ass out. We don't want people taking away our rights. We want people that are protecting our rights. So we need to put people in Congress that are going to be protecting rights, not taking them away.